Deep within the human psyche lies an eternal struggle for self-determination. The vast majority of people, as if bound by invisible threads, are constrained by limitations imposed upon them by society and desperately crave the approval of others. From early childhood, from the moment they begin to distinguish smiles from frowns of their parents, this need for constant validation becomes defining. Their self-esteem is directly dependent on the opinions of others, even strangers. As Richard Taylor noted in his work, Restoring Pride, few manage to break free from this vicious cycle. Many of us are overly concerned with what others think of us, overvaluing social approval and experiencing unwarranted fear of criticism, rejection, and disapproval. Instead of following their talents, strengths, and desires, they submit to the expectations and aspirations of others. Some even abandon their dreams, fearing condemnation if they attempt to realize them. The first step towards forming a healthier attitude towards the opinions of others may be to reflect on those whose approval we so crave. Ask yourself, are these people worthy of our respect and admiration? Are they in a state of growth and development, or, on the contrary, are they stagnating? Do they possess the courage, independence, and inquisitive mind necessary to seek truth and form their own opinions? Or are they cowardly conformists, mindlessly repeating everything they hear from the news, celebrities, politicians, and popular figures on social media? If a person does not inspire admiration in us, should we worry about what impression our way of life will make on them? The answer to this question can be the starting point on the path to liberation from the opinions of others and the attainment of genuine freedom of self-expression. What is the strange satisfaction that a person experiences from the praise of those whom they themselves do not consider worthy of praise? This question, posed by Seneca in his Letters, is reflected in the reflections of Arthur Schopenhauer, who notes that over time we come to realize the superficiality and limitations of the thinking of most people, which, it would seem, should lead to indifference to their opinion. However, as practice shows, developing immunity to the approval of others is no easy task. The need for recognition is especially acute in situations where a person finds themselves at the center of attention of a group or crowd. In such cases, social anxiety often arises, which constrains and paralyzes, preventing them from realizing their potential. During public speaking, excitement and nervousness do not allow one to demonstrate all their abilities, and at social events, stiffness and shyness deprive one of naturalness and ease. But the saddest thing is that this very social anxiety, fueling an excessive need for approval from others, can force a person to compromise their principles. Even realizing the incorrectness of their words or actions, they may timidly follow the crowd, just to not stand out and not cause disapproval. To curb the oppressive feeling of social anxiety, as the Stoic philosopher Epictetus argued, it is necessary to deeply consider the very nature of the crowd. After all, according to him, a person susceptible to this ailment simply does not realize what this mass of people represents, rejoicing and applauding, does not understand the true value of praise emanating from many faces, and has never bothered to study this issue. That is why, as Epictetus concludes in his writings, such a person is doomed to tremble and turn pale in the face of public opinion. Often, people tend to perceive the crowd as some kind of independent entity, and it is quite natural that its presence causes them fear and confusion. However, in essence, a crowd is just an accumulation of individual people who, by chance, found themselves in the same place or united by a common impulse. When a person is surrounded by a crowd, they should train themselves to see and perceive not a faceless mass, but individual people. This approach will greatly facilitate the task of curbing the anxious desire for approval. After all, if we remain indifferent to the praise of a single person whom we do not respect, then the same should apply to a gathering of individuals who happen to be together. As the outstanding Roman philosopher and statesman Cicero once remarked in his work, Tusculan Disputations, it is truly ridiculous to believe that people whom we despise for their ignorance and mediocrity will suddenly become more important when gathered together. Indeed, it sometimes happens that a group or crowd consists of personalities distinguished by outstanding intelligence and noble character. However, even in such circumstances, the opinion of these people about us is beyond our control, and, therefore, should not cause undue concern. Our goal is to conduct ourselves impeccably, avoiding actions that might invite scorn, and to accept with dignity any judgments formed about us. In this regard, it's fitting to recall the words of Epictetus from his Discourses: "No worthy person gives way to sorrow and lamentations, sheds tears, grows pale or trembles, or asks, how will he receive me, how will he listen to me? A slave will act as he thinks fit. Why do you concern yourself with the affairs of others?" Alongside reducing our dependence on the approval of others, overcoming the fear of criticism, ridicule, and rejection also plays a crucial role in living a fulfilling life. It's essential to learn to maintain composure when we're stung by the barbs of another's disdain, whether in the virtual realm or in real life. Epictetus wisely advised that, when confronted with someone's contempt, one should first stop and pause before responding, as instantaneous or ill-considered reactions often lead to negative consequences. If we take the time to collect our thoughts, we can choose a response that best fits the situation. As Rollo May noted in his book, The Courage to Create, human freedom involves our capacity to pause between stimulus and response and, in that pause, to choose the one response toward which we wish to throw our weight. Or, as Epictetus insightfully remarked, remember that it is not he who reviles you or strikes you who insults you, but your judgment that these things are insulting. Therefore, when someone irritates you, realize that it is your own opinion which is irritating you. Try, therefore, in the first place, not to be carried away by the impression, for if you once win time and delay, you will find it easier to control yourself. Epictetus, Enchiridion. In other words, the ability to control one's emotions and reactions is key to maintaining inner balance and freedom from the influence of others. One of the most effective methods of countering insults and mockery is the so-called stone-facing technique. The essence of this approach is simple: to react to the offender with complete indifference, like an insentient stone. In other words, a complete absence of any reaction. Ignore the attacker's words, continue with your activities as if they don't even exist. This tactic is effective for two key reasons. Firstly, when someone resorts to insults or ridicule, their main goal is to elicit a response, to feel the power of their words over the victim. Stone-facing deprives the aggressor of this satisfaction, demonstrating that their provocations are powerless and unable to unbalance you. Secondly, actions directly influence thoughts and emotions. By reacting like a stone, a person gradually gains inner peace and composure. As Seneca wrote in On Anger, the greatest remedy for anger is delay, a great mind overlooks injuries, the best kind of revenge is not to resemble the injury. Epictetus, the ancient philosopher, offered a metaphorical perspective on insults. He urged us to perceive them with the impassivity of a stone, emphasizing that offensive words will have no effect if they are not reacted to. If a person remains calm and does not succumb to provocations, insults lose their power. Alternatively, one can resort to humor to defuse a tense situation, demonstrating thereby that there is no intention to respond with rudeness and fuel another's anger. A well-aimed and witty remark can disarm an opponent and even turn them into a friend. Humor instills confidence and a sense of superiority, because it is the strong in spirit who are able to look with irony at attempts to offend them. Seneca, the Roman philosopher, noted that some people are offended by the slightest trifles, finding offense in the gloomy gaze of a doorman or the arrogance of a servant. However, according to Seneca, such trivialities should only evoke laughter and a deep sense of satisfaction from the awareness of one's own inner balance, while others lose their composure. Diogenes, a prominent philosopher, masterfully wielded the art of using humor to resolve difficult situations with not the most pleasant individuals. Once, when he was stung by a bald man, Diogenes retorted, "I will not respond to you with an insult, but rather congratulate your hair on having wisely left such a vile head." In another case, upon learning of unflattering reviews from a fellow philosopher, Diogenes remarked, "What is so surprising about this, since he never mastered the art of eloquence?" When a group of men rudely interrupted his speech, Diogenes exclaimed loudly, "Hey, men, come here." As soon as they approached, Diogenes dismissively waved them away, stating, "I called for men, not riffraff." However, at times, humor should be directed at oneself, because some offensive words may contain a grain of truth. Instead of getting upset by pointed insults, it's much wiser to admit that, like everyone else, we have flaws, quirks, weaknesses, and blind spots that could very well be the subject of jokes. If we stop taking ourselves so seriously and develop a healthy sense of humility, we can laugh along with those who make fun of us, thereby neutralizing their attempts to throw us off balance. As the insightful French thinker Montaigne stated in his Essays, true dignity lies in the ability to see the comical in both the world around us and in ourselves, that is, to be equally laughable and capable of laughing. The Roman philosopher Seneca echoed this sentiment, emphasizing that a person with self-deprecating humor is invulnerable to ridicule from others, because no one is ridiculous who can laugh at himself. Epictetus, a proponent of Stoicism, offered an original way of responding to criticism. Instead of making excuses for what he heard, the philosopher advised responding, "Obviously, he didn't know about my other shortcomings, otherwise he wouldn't have spoken only about the ones he knew." This witty remark, recorded in the Enchiridion, demonstrates acceptance of one's weaknesses and imperfections. However, according to the sages, the most effective means of getting rid of excessive concern about the opinions of others is to develop unwavering self-confidence. Insecurity and complexes, like shackles, chain a person to the need for approval and fear of contempt. At the same time, focusing on self-improvement, strengthening the intellect and body, forming a strong character, achieving goals, and creating a worthy life, allows one to look at other people's opinions, whether praise or censure, as something insignificant and fleeting. Epictetus, one of the pillars of Stoic philosophy, left us with wise advice that is still relevant today. When you are overcome with a thirst for external recognition, remember that you have already compromised your inner truth. These words contain the profound thought that the desire for approval from others can become a trap, forcing us to betray our principles. Indeed, why seek confirmation of your worth in the eyes of others, if we ourselves can be our own strictest and fairest judge? Epictetus urges us, if you need a witness, be it yourself. This means that we must learn to trust ourselves, our intuition, and our beliefs. Only then can we maintain our integrity and avoid the disappointments associated with dependence on the opinions of others.